Hi, everyone. My name is Beverly Allen. I'm a Pierce County attorney. I've been practicing family law in Tacoma for 10 years, and today I'm recording in the Pierce County Law Library, which is now open to the public. Now, the Law Library does have many resources online, including an ebook library and including several research sites such as Lexis and Casemaker. So I do heavily encourage you to use those resources. Also, when you use the ebook library, you can annotate on the searches that you have and store those as your saved annotations. There is a video on the Pierce County Law Library website with Amy Watterson and the fabulous Law Library Director, Lori, explaining how to use those resources. So please check that out. But today I'm here to talk to you about parentage law in Washington State. Now, Washington State, like many other states across the United States, has adopted its version of the Uniform Parentage Act. Essentially, what that does is it sets up how do you become a parent. So there are several ways to become a parent. Obviously, giving birth to a child is one way, and that is enshrined as one way to become a parent. Now, someone who gives birth as part of a surrogacy contract would not be a parent, but the normal act of giving birth, just intending to have a child, does in fact make someone a parent. Other ways to become a parent: signing an affidavit of paternity. So this is a document, you can get it from the Department of Health, and it does need to be signed and notarized by both parents, which means that you have to have a notary there who has to take your ID for both of you and witness your signature. Once that document is filed with the state of Washington, that does create parental rights and obligations. And at that point, you will receive a birth certificate. Now, once you have that parental relationship, other rights flow from that, such as a parenting plan and an obligation of child support, which is important, especially for unmarried parents. Now, if someone gives birth while married to another person, that other person, regardless of gender, is a presumptive parent because of the marital relationship. Also, giving birth to a child within 300 days of the dissolution also entitles that other person to parental rights through the presumption. Okay, so if you want to defeat that presumption, there's also an affidavit also available with the Department of Health to deny paternity. And you can file a denial of paternity as well if you know that there's a presumption, but you also both know that you are not the father. You can also file that document. The other common way to establish or disestablish paternity is through court action. Interestingly enough, I had a case where one client was seeking to determine paternity for 2 kids, and the result was that he was determined the father of one child, but not the other child. So it's possible that there are some facts to suggest that someone may be the parent of one or more children, but not of all the children in a relationship. And so the way that the court sorts that out is by ordering genetic testing. And then from there, the genetic test results, which are done through a lab, it's usually a cheek swab, get filed with the court. And then the person who's trying to establish or disestablish paternity, or sometimes the state of Washington, if the state initiates these actions, will then obtain summary judgment on the issue of paternity. Now, if the state helps you out, which is one of the more common ways to establish paternity in Washington, they are not interested in the parenting plan. They are interested in child support, particularly when one parent is receiving state assistance. So that's how the prosecutor's office becomes involved. And in Pierce County, we have the Family Support Division of the prosecutor's office. So the prosecutor's office can provide some assistance if you are on state assistance, or you can come into the Pierce County Law Library and look at the resources to you. We have the RCW annotated, and you'll find the Uniform Parentage Act in RCW 2.26a. So you can also find that online. I encourage you to familiarize yourself with those provisions. Let's talk about some of the rights and responsibilities, as well as your some of the myths that I've heard and the questions. So rights and responsibilities. For parents, you have the right to a parenting plan, so some sort of time with your child. It's actually a constitutionally protected right to parent your child once that parental relationship is determined. That does not automatically determine what's the residential schedule. So you will still have to argue that and file. Once paternity is established, you'll have to file for a parenting plan and explain to the court why it's in the child's best interest to adopt your parenting plan. The state of Washington does not get involved with the drafting or negotiation of the parenting plan. That's pretty much on the parents to advocate for themselves and the best interest of their child. Responsibilities, of course, are child support. Child support is determined based off of the income of the parents. Some standard deductions, which I talk about in other videos, are based on taxes or based on 401k contributions. But once that parental relationship is established, child support can also be ordered to the newly established parent. So those are some rights and responsibilities that you have. Some common myths that I've heard are, one common misconception is that a custody order, if the other parent does not have time with the child or has limited time, that they somehow have lost their rights. That is not the case. I've also heard a myth that, well, if you both know who the father is, it does not really matter that they're not on the birth certificate. They still have an obligation or they still have rights because you both know that that person is the father. That is not the case. If the parents were unmarried, if the father is not on the birth certificate, an at-home paternity test does not matter. Just the fact that you both know only one person can be the father, that does not matter. That person, legally speaking, either has to sign an affidavit of paternity, which the birth parent also has to sign, or they have to go to court. Simple knowledge is not enough. How long does the process take? Well, the affidavit of paternity is a document that you can fill out and send into the state. So that's a very, very quick process. The actual court process can and does take months. You may have to bring a motion for genetic testing. You have to conduct the genetic testing. You have to do a summary judgment motion, which takes 28 days to note. So all of this stuff does take time. So please be patient if you're working your way through the process. Make sure that you've noted your motions for hearing and just write it out. But again, if you can negotiate signing the affidavit of paternity, then you can go straight to arguing over the parenting plan and the child support, or better yet, go and mediate those issues and get some agreements on that. So what kind of evidence do you need? Typically speaking, an at-home paternity test is not going to be sufficient. The court is looking for a lab test, and there are special forms available at courts.wa.gov to file those lab genetic results. There's actually an affidavit from the person who collected the test where they would need to certify that those results are accurate and that they've maintained a chain of custody. Simple knowledge, hey, this person said they were the father. That's not going to be enough for the court. They're going to look for that genetic test and that lab test. So if, just one thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap up this video, there are some other ways besides establishing paternity through a judicial action for paternity that someone can, in fact, have that parental relationship recognized by the court. And those are de facto parentage. If someone has raised the child and that child knows that person as their parent and they've been holding out that child as their child, there is a petition, again, available at courts.wa.gov, to establish de facto parentage. It's basically a psychological parentage determination but it also gives that parent rights and responsibilities. Adoption is another common way to establish that parental relationship. And in Pierce County, we do have an adoption coordinator. You can file a petition for adoption and get parental rights recognized through adoption. Again, that comes with parental responsibilities as well. So if you've adopted a child with someone that you're partnered with or remarried to, upon that dissolution of that relationship, you will have obligations to the child that you've adopted. So if you have any questions, I encourage you to go to the Pierce County Law Library website, take advantage of their materials. I also encourage you to message my page. I do have a Facebook page, Tacoma Legal Coach. I have a website, tacomalegalcoach.com. My name is Beverly Allen, and thank you for watching. I hope you've learned a few things.